Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am Gillian Berry, and today we have an amazing return guest on. We have 𝐼𝑺𝑬. He was on before with his amazing long-term juice fast that totally changed his life. And now Dan has taken on an all raw foods diet. He is on day 90. He has not eaten any cooked food. We're going to talk about his experience, how it has changed his life, what is going on, and let's get right into it. Hey Dan, thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much for having me back, Gillian. It's awesome to be here. I just pulled up our video, the first one we did together, because I was telling my daughter, I'm about to go have an interview with Gillian and I'm a little nervous. She's like, why are you nervous? I said, well, the last time I met with her, 10,000 people have viewed the video, which is just incredible. Your channel is amazing, the growth that it's had. And it's exciting because so many more people are exposed to the truth that you offer through all these interviews. And you really have had some like heavy hitters, especially recently. It's an honor to be back.
Yeah, thanks. No, I love having you back. And yeah, I just had Dr. Morse on. That was an awesome talk. And there's so many awesome ones coming. I can't wait. And Joe Cross, I just interviewed him from Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's going up this week. Well, okay. So 90 days only raw food. I'm so interested because, you know, I talked to like a lot of these OGs. People have been doing it forever, but I know my viewers, my subscribers, and I myself want to know how it's going for like shorter term. Not that 90 days is like shorter term. It is still like a substantial amount of time. So what led you first to embark on only raw foods?
Okay, great. So for me, it is still like I'm just getting started, like I'm dipping my toes in, even though it's 90 days is, whoa, 90 days. But you're right. Realistically, it's not a big, long period of time. So what kind of led me to it was just consuming a lot of content on your channel and other channels like yours of other people that have had really good experiences with raw. So, and then of course I joined the group on Facebook, Raw Vegan Heroes, and I was exposed to Shane and his content and really enjoyed that. So I guess it was a natural progression after I finished the juice fast or feast to step in and give it a try. Like I really like Shane's mentality of just give it a try for a few years. Because of some of the not so healthy things that I've done in my life, what's a few years of something that could potentially have such an amazing, result? It just made a lot of sense. Like so much of the stuff that I heard was backed up by, real science that I could verify, that wasn't funded by a source that to me was a little biased or sketchy. And I don't know, it just made a lot of sense. So I thought, why not give this a try? Why not give this a real good try? And just see, how it goes and how I feel. And yeah, so that's what I decided to do.
Wow. Amazing. And so was it hard when you first got started? And like, what did your daily meal plan look like getting started?
It was hard when I first got started. And a matter of fact, it's still kind of difficult for me, to be quite honest. And I like how real you keep your channel. And I was not going to get on here and mislead people to say that, oh, it's so easy. And I wanted to talk about the fact that it has been kind of challenging for me. And the cool thing is I did know that going into it. You'd think logically, or at least I did, that doing a juice fast for 100 days would be like way harder. But Shane and several other people, educated me to know that the real work starts when you break your fast. That's the real work, starts with the refeeding. And at first I thought, whatever, but I heard it over and over and over again, too many times to discount, too many times not to take, really just be aware of it. So I kind of went into it knowing that the hard work was about to start when I started my refeeding. I had an amazing refeeding guide from Magri that hooked me up. And I even told her, I'm like, I'm going to be your poster child for your refeed. Like, get ready, because you're going to be able to take my testimonial and be like, here's why you need to.
I interviewed Magri yesterday. I heard that.
Oh, did you?
I heard it went a little bit different than that.
I crashed and burned. Yeah. And she loves to remind me, like, what happened, Dan? What happened? And I stuck to it really well for like the first few days. And I was keeping her like, informed along the way. But I think it was day 3 or 4. I had like a bite of a flaxseed cracker because I had made some raw food for my mom.
I heard. Yeah. It's hard though. It's hard after a juice fast. It's hard. Like I remember I broke my 37 days once with a big salad, and it was like, it was not smart, but it's like, yeah. Wow. So, okay, well, what would you say are the benefits you've experienced? Have you noticed benefits on the raw foods versus how you felt on cooked food?
Yeah, I love how light and simple it is. So like eating before cooked foods. Well, one, I'm just going to be real. Like I've always had, I would say, an eating disorder of a kind. Like I just binge, right? So I would certain types of food, I would just overdo it often. Like a lot of sugar, but a lot of savory stuff too. Like for instance, pizza. Like if I had I don't think I can remember ever having like a piece of pizza. Just like I can never remember having like a drink of alcohol. There's no
Mhm.
point. The only point to have a drink of alcohol or a piece of pizza is to set it up to have like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 more and hurt myself.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it hurt myself. I would hurt myself. Not like intentionally. I'm not like going out and be like, I'm gonna go and get a DUI and or have massive indigestion and heartburn. But that's ultimately what would happen. So I guess that's the fun part with this. I really I can't overdo it. Well, I guess I can overeat certain types of like heavy high fat type things, but it's really difficult to do it, especially if I go out of my way, which I've done, to consume a lot of high water content raw foods throughout the day, mostly fruit, and get my caloric intake where it needs to be, and then save the higher fat or savory salad dressing or other gourmet type prepared food for later on in the day. It's a lot less likely that I will overdo it, if that makes sense. So that's one
Mhm.
of the biggest benefits. Also, I used to have like heartburn a lot. Would have to take things to combat that, like all throughout the day. Sometimes as early as like first thing in the morning. Partly because I think I drank a lot of coffee, like a lot of coffee, but other things too that I'm sure attributed to it in terms of acidic foods and drinks that I was consuming. So not having to do that, not having to take aspirin or Tylenol or ibuprofen or any, and I didn't really even it didn't even dawn on me really until I'm kind of reflecting, but I used to take that pretty often, like a couple few times a week on
Mm.
average for a headache or some type of other, ailment. I did pull a muscle in my lower back or strain a muscle. I went right into working out like really hard and doing a squat with not as good a form and probably a little more weight than I should have. I pulled or strained a muscle early on the refeed, but I didn't feel like I needed to take anything to combat the pain, and then that just helped me to uh, get back into my yoga practice, which I've been doing every single day for almost 3 months as well,
Wow.
an hour a day every morning before I work out. So both of which I've been able to do so much more than I was prior to. My muscle recovery for my workouts has been like insanely boosted. Like normally I would do between 3 and 5 sets of between 4 and 7 exercises, mostly compound stuff like pull-ups, bench press, rows, deadlifts, squats. But now I'm finding myself doing like 2, 3, 4 more times going back because we have a small gym we built at our home. So I'll just go up there and do a bunch more throughout the day. And I'm like ready to go the next day all over again. So I have been forcing myself to take the day of recovery. So I've only been working out every other day, but that's another huge benefit. So yeah, there's a few right there. But yeah, when I eat, I don't feel like that lethargic feeling of like we're coming up on Thanksgiving. And I just remember like eating and then almost having to like go take a nap or lay down or just feel like I couldn't do. Now I'll eat and just I'm ready to go like so quickly.
Well, this is gonna air after Thanksgiving, so you guys
Okay.
will happy early Thanksgiving. You guys will already have it, but what are you planning on eating for Thanksgiving raw? And like, how do you make this work? Because I don't think your family's raw, right? Has this been a challenge socially? Because I would say that
Yes.
is the only challenge for me over the years is
Yeah.
socially. And I think that's a
Yeah.
big challenge for people because we connect over food, right? So how has that been going?
Really,
And that
really
juice
well.
looks great, by the way. What's in that juice?
I don't know if you can see that. That's my turkey dinner from
Wow, look at you.
my mom sent me that.
That's awesome.
Mom's been pretty much raw. Like
Good.
she read a couple books and at first she was reluctant and a little resistant, but she's all but 100% now. There's only a couple things and she told me the other day she's like I'm really thinking about going 100 and I'm like what are you still having because I thought she was and she's like oh there's a
Yeah.
couple things and um
Yeah.
but she's about ready. This is just satsuma juice. So I had a friend of mine, quick story, and she said, "Hey, I've got this satsuma. Have you had one before?"
No, it looks like
Oh,
the honey orange, like I have these
oh,
tangerine oranges. No, is that what that looks like?
probably the same thing. It's
I get
probably the
them at
Canadian
Chinatown.
version of a
It's
satsuma.
so good. Yeah.
These things are insanely good. Yeah, it's a real sweet citrus. They peel so easy. Anyway, she has this tree. She said, "Come take as much as you want. I only want a few bags." So my daughter and I went out there. It was a good drive out, and we get there, and I'm like, "Uh-oh!" Like there was way more than I anticipated. And she's older, and I didn't want to leave fruit because I knew it would go wasted. So we stayed, and we went to work hard for like 2.5 hours, and
Wow.
we got probably about 300 pounds of satsumas, filled up
Wow.
the entire back of my van, like a lot of fruit.
What a
And I thought,
dream.
yeah, I thought the only way I'm getting through this is if I juice it. So for like a week, all I've had is satsuma juice, which is fun. It's awesome to just, like do like a little impromptu juice fast. Also, because I love giving my digestive system a break. The refeeding has been kind of difficult. I go through periods where it's like I'm good, and then I'll eat some, and it's just the response is just constantly trying to listen to my body and realize like the food combined, like taking breaks between certain meals and giving myself time, not eating too close to bed, watching the
That's
fat
huge.
content,
I
just
stop
a lot of
eating. I usually don't eat after 3, and it's such a game changer. Like I sleep so much better, I wake up so much better, and it's a huge difference if I eat in the evening. I think I didn't even really realize that until I stopped doing it. And then you're like, "Whoa." And then if you eat again in the evening, you feel like you're not even sleeping because your body's just digesting. It's not
right,
getting a deep sleep because it's just focusing on digesting that food, right? It's a huge game changer,
right.
at least for me. I know everyone's different, but
No, same. And then also like the next day, I can feel the result too of, if I eat too close to bed, I wake up and I can still feel like food where it shouldn't be in my system. It's just weird
mhm.
to have such a quick bowel transit time. Like it's good, and it can also be bad as well because food does just move very quickly through, which I think ideally is the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah, so your digestion's been good, Raw, and, like, how has your weight been, Raw?
So I got down to like about 155 pounds, and I'm like
Wow.
just under 5'11". So I got pretty lean, and I've been able to gain back about 10 pounds, between 10 and 15 pounds more. So pretty good, which is kind of what I wanted to do, especially working out. I wanted, long-term goal, 3 to 5 years, I want to add a pretty substantial amount of muscle, lean muscle to my frame. And, kind of because a lot of people think that you can't do that. And so, but I know better, and I know you can. And I think it'll look good and it'll feel good to do that. But yeah, so mom, to go back to what you're talking about, the support and the family.
Yeah.
My wife's been very supportive. Same with my kids, but they're not raw. They have incorporated a lot more raw food, and my wife and kids will try almost everything I'll make. A couple things they're like, okay, no, because sometimes I'll just sit down like right before this, and I'll just eat like half a tray of sprouts with nothing,
Mhm.
just sprouts,
Wow.
and just
That's
chew
another
them.
level.
Well, it's just good to get it done, earlier in the day. And plus I love the idea of just eating one thing at a time. Like digestive wise, it works so good with my system. Not to say I always do it, because like the salads, I'll build these massive salads and have all kinds of stuff in there. But yeah, sometimes I love the idea of just huge monofruit, and just eating until I absolutely can't eat any more of just one thing, and then waiting. Usually it's not more than like an hour and a half, and I'm like ready to go again with more juice or water or whatever. But yeah, mom came on board. She's been cooking, like she's got a dehydrator. I bought like a really nice 9 tray dehydrator. I upgraded my Vitamix, so now we've got 2 Vitamixes, well, actually 3 if you count mom. Mine has the food processor attachment as well. And so, but she's been doing like really amazing raw cheeses and just all kind of different things, and fermented stuff. She made these crab cakes with cauliflower that she fermented, and they were so good. And the best part was, like, my wife Angela, tried them. They were a little bit too spicy for her. My uncle was in town. He tried them, a little bit too spicy for him. My mom tried them, a little bit too spicy for her. So I got to eat this entire tray, and I ate all of them in like
Wow.
about 20 minutes because they were so good. And I made this special sauce for them, and it's just fun. It's exciting. It has taken a lot more time to like prep and think ahead and get these things planned out, but ultimately it's been really cool and fun. And
And
I have
has
still
it
been able.
do you think it's been worth it? Has it been worth it?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I definitely think it has been.
Yeah. And what would you say maybe are some of like your go-to favorite raw meals?
Zoodles for sure with all different types of sauces. I mean, Angela loves I do this like marinara with the zoodles. So she
Mhm.
prefers, of course, like regular noodles or the kelp noodles, which we tried those several times. We have those kind of on standby now because mom loves them as well. But the zoodles, I like them because it's like whole food. It's real. Not that kelp's not, but it just seems more like a whole food type option. And there's, I think, more water content. And I like the water. So I'll whip up a huge bowl of zoodles or zucchini noodles or whatever. And then I'll make like and I've gotten now to where I don't really even need a recipe necessarily to whip up a really good sauce. That's the only downside is mom's like, wow, this one's really good. What's in it? I'm like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So
Yeah.
I'll put like tomatoes and then sun-dried tomatoes and then a little bit of salt, maybe a little bit of nutritional yeast, a little bit of, or quite a bit of basil, some other herbs maybe. I really like, oh gosh, what do we have that one out front? We've got some herbs growing outside and rosemary. And so I'll just go
Yeah.
outside and put a bunch of rosemary in there, which is really good. And then that's like a marinara and I'll put that on zoodles. That's really good. Also love to do the same thing with like a cashew based Alfredo. And so I'll do a little bit of lemon, cashews or hemp or both. And then, and I've got it all different types of nuts, like pre-soaked and dehydrated in my freezer, ready to go. So at any point in time, I can just pull these out and whip up like an amazing batch of crackers or sauce or whatever. But yeah, I'll start with a base, maybe equal parts cashews, hemp seeds, and then squeeze a lemon in there, a little bit of salt, a little bit of nutritional yeast, maybe some herbs. And that's just an amazing, like creamy Alfredo sauce with the zoodles. Then I just watched your video with the curry
Oh, it's
and
good.
oh, I cannot wait to try that. I'm gonna kill that.
It's so good. You got to try it with the pineapple and onion and tomato and everything on top too.
I bought exactly what you had on there. I have the red onion. I bought pineapple and cherry tomato. I'm gonna do it just like you did because that sounds really, really good. My only thing is I got to tone down the spicy so mom and Angela can enjoy it as well. Because I'm like just as much as you can pour it on there. I really love the spicy. So
Yeah. And do you feel like satisfied with all the food or do you miss cooked food and like how have the cravings been?
you know, I don't miss it. It's kind of like when I quit smoking cigarettes, I guess. Like this, like when I'm triggered by like the smell or seeing somebody else smoke. Because even to this day, like a lot of ex-smokers are like, "Oh, I cannot stand the smell." I still smell the cigarettes, and I think, "Ooh, that smells good." That I could almost like, and I think it's because I grew up and both my parents smoked in the home, in the car, and I
Me
almost like
too.
kind
Yeah.
of tie it to childhood and fonder. You know how smells we tie a lot to memory. So whatever. I don't like wake up and go, man, I sure wish I could have, cooked food. And
Yeah.
throughout the day, I don't think of it. But if I'm triggered, like if Angela's cooking like a vegan, burger or something, of course the smells, it does. I'm like, man, okay, I'm going to go on a walk or, eat a bunch of fruit real quick and then get some crackers, some flaxseed crackers and some guacamole or something to just kind of curb that, and I think over time that will subside. I don't think it's going to be as hard moving forward. I hope
Hmm.
not. I'm hoping,
Yeah.
I'm kind of counting on it, like not staying as strong,
No,
but yeah,
it
I'd be
gets
lying.
easier. Yeah, it
But
gets
yeah, I'd be
easier.
lying if I said I don't ever like get that craving or that moment of like, ooh, it'd be nice to bite into something like that.
Yeah. And have you had a hard time staying full? I know this is a big thing for a lot of people. They come on my channel and they're like, I'd love to do this lifestyle, but I just always feel hungry and I never feel full. Have you dealt with that? Or maybe like, do you have some tips around that?
Yeah, I start every day with a lemon ginger blast, like a big one. That I think staying hydrated for me is a huge part of feeling full and
Hmm.
satiated. And I don't think it's real hunger. I know what they mean. And I too have struggled with that feeling of like I'll wake up a lot of days, I'll have my lemon ginger blast. So I wake up early, like 3:34. I do my little routine with my meditation and reading, yoga and all that journaling. And then I have my lemon ginger blast workout. And then I'll do usually like a smoothie or a mono fruit meal. But I don't like I thought about getting on Chronometer or whatever and like trying to figure out the macros and watching my calories. And then I thought, no, let me just commit to raw for now and just, fully commit to that. And I'll worry about, maybe intermittent fasting and what my macro split is like later on down the road, but let me get a few months of just raw under my belt. So I'll bring a lot of fruit and with me as I go through my day, and I don't hesitate to just eat like pretty much whenever I want, as much as I want fruit. And like I do keep it to fruit though until late afternoon when I start to have like a heavier meal, a huge salad or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird satiation. So it's not that I'm hungry, but I could eat. And there's a difference, I think, between being hungry and wanting to eat. So like if I eat a whole plate full of oranges, I'm not hungry. But if I wanted to, I could eat 8 pieces of pizza right after that. Like
Yeah.
I could. There's certain types of food that I used to consume on a very regular basis that I could eat, like potato chip. They're built in a way that I can just overdo it. And even though I'm technically full and not hungry, I could eat them on top of being full and not, and that to me is not a good thing. Like,
No.
but I used
That's
to
why
do
it's
it like
good.
all the
The
time.
raw kind of helps you keep all that in check, It's part of the reason
Yeah.
I like doing raw, because I don't drink like 10 glasses of wine and like a whole pizza and like,
Right.
a bunch of wings and like, what would you say is your favorite part of being raw?
My favorite part. I feel this is going to be kind of weird because I started a plant-based journey years and years ago, but it was all around health.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I felt like also kind of cool about the whole fact that now that because I watched a bunch of documentaries, and so I learned a bunch of stuff about the planet and the animals, and I felt good about that too. But the primary focus was just my health, my overall health. Long term, I saw this as a much better. I was going to play out a whole lot better. Really bought into like the Dr. McGregor or Michael Greger,
Mm-hmm.
How Not to Die. So,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't really have that ethical vegan connection at all until just recently. So my favorite part is probably that I feel really, really good now about not contributing to
Wow.
harm in that way, like really good about it. It broke my heart first because I forced myself to watch things that were extremely difficult to watch. I couldn't watch them straight through. I would cry and get really, really emotional, which again, I kind of hate that about myself now too, that I'm so much more connected to, I think, the bigger part of who I really am on a spiritual level, but it plays out through my emotions and my thoughts in a way that I didn't really anticipate prior to. So I hate it and I love it at the same time, but it kind of drew me to really investigate more of the ethical vegan argument, I guess, or reason to be. And now I feel very, very vested in that.
Good. Wow.
And I used to jokingly say that people go vegan for like one of 3 reasons: health, the animals, the planet. And then I created this 4th one where it was just to make other people feel bad about what they ate. And of course I was joking, but I would use like humor and things like that to kind of like, I hate to say it, but almost like shame people that weren't eating the way I was eating. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
now I look at it, I just have a totally different perspective about it. But I feel way, way connected to
Mm-hmm.
other people, to animals, to nature. And then that coincides very closely to like intuition, where I really feel these little nudges and promptings throughout the day.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's to just shut up and be still and be part of, because I have a tendency, obviously you probably know by now, to talk a lot.
No, that's good. I
So
like it. Yeah. That's why you're on here. No, it's good.
but
No, me
but
too. Sometimes we just have to get still. It's like I interviewed
yeah.
Dr. Morris and he was like, if you're trying to manifest a good life and everything's a mess, you need to get quiet. Even go in your closet, go somewhere and just be still, be quiet and like connect with yourself. You're right. It is important.
Yeah, and it's so easy to discount or forget about or not prioritize. I loved his interview. I'm going to watch it again today or listen to it while I'm working. And yeah, the same things I was keying in off of that he said, you got to go be quiet. And I was thinking like, go be alone and be quiet. And that's hard for me, but it's so, so beneficial. So, but that's
Yeah.
probably been one of my favorite parts, I think.
Well, I'm wondering too, like what inspires you? What's inspired you to stay on track this long? Has there been like people in particular, like a book or like anything just really like that has been like the key to inspiration for you on this whole track?
It's hard to really tie it down to one one thing, because I really have gone way out of my way to kind of overconsume or bombard my mind with, I mean, of course it's all intentional too, but I've gone out of my way to bombard my mind and consciousness with people that I find to be inspiring. So a lot of stuff from your channel, of course, Shane and everything, Shane Sterling. I've really been inspired a lot by him. The fact that he's such a strong, masculine male
Yeah.
role model in this, I love that about him. And he's still, even though he's 50 now or almost or whatever,
Almost. Yeah.
he seems so young, like young at heart. He has this playful, like innocent, gentle, like fun spirit, but he speaks such truth and he speaks it so boldly and unapologetically.
Mhm.
And he's able to cut through a lot of the fluff out there, and there's a lot of, misleading information. There's a lot of information. And I like how,
True.
so it's hard for me to like nail down like one particular book, because I've read dozens, and Conversations with God was,
Oh,
thank
that's
you
my
so
favorite
much for
book of
that.
all time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I don't think I'd ever read or listened to that, but I did download it on Audible, all of it.
Yeah.
It just binged it like over
Yeah.
the
It's the
course
best.
of a
It's
few
good on
days.
Audible. So you listen to the
Mm,
whole book.
yeah,
So
yep,
good, right?
I
Neil
loved it.
Donald Walsh. Yeah. For anybody who doesn't know, I'll link it below. Conversations with God. I have to try get him on the channel because he is just
Oh,
like,
that would be insane.
wow,
Yeah.
what a book. I feel like if there's only one book to leave behind or only one book for me to read for the rest of my life, that is the book. I feel like it just has
Mm,
everything in it. It's so crazy good.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one. That was really, really
Wow.
good.
Well, okay. So I was going to ask you too, do you feel like you've had your nutritional needs met? Some people say this diet's crazy. You're not getting everything you need. So do you feel like you've had everything met? Have you checked your blood work? Do you supplement? What do you get? Where do you think you get your protein, especially as somebody who's working out?
So yeah, I love the protein one. I do feel like I've got my nutritional needs met, but again, I don't know for sure. I haven't had blood work done before or after. I'm going to have that done. Magri asked me, and I think it's important to do, if for no other reason, just to check, just to
Yeah.
check and see. I do take a B12 supplement, and I think we all should, even people that don't subscribe to this lifestyle. I think we're all pretty inherently low, and D as well. I take a supplement for that, zinc and iodine as well. But outside of that, I don't supplement yet. I'm going to start taking a plant-based raw protein powder as well, and pretty soon, just to get an additional amount of protein. I probably don't need it, but again, my workouts have been going so well, and I really do. I'm lifting more and more often than ever before, and I just want to take advantage of my body's ability to build like I haven't prior to. But yeah, I think I have a huge variety of food throughout a week, just an
Hmm.
incredible amount of different types of food, and I've gone out of my way to really do that intentionally. But also, just with how excited I get with different recipes, they just tend to incorporate like a huge smorgasbord of different ingredients that otherwise I never would be exposed to. So due to that, I feel like I'm getting a good amount of my nutritional needs met. Protein, I have a shirt that says "Keep calm, plants have protein," and several other shirts that kind of antagonize the protein myth. But I think we're in a culture and a society that is deeply ingrained with this idea that we need a lot more protein than we really do. If you look at the amount of protein in human breast milk versus other,
Hmm.
it's just I don't think we need as much as we think we do, that most people think they do. Now, is there science to back it up? Sure. Can I spout that
Hmm.
off? No, but I've read a lot of the science. I've watched a lot of documentaries and interviews with people a whole lot smarter than me. And I guess I'm kind of gullible. I buy into it, but I also feel like I have a good sense of intuition. Like I can kind of tell if something's sounds a little bit like maybe they have an agenda or they're biased one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I'm quick to see too, like who funded the study, because to me, that's another good way to find out, if the information isn't just maybe a little slighted or biased one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
And I know you drank coffee before.
yeah,
Like I would say that's the hardest thing I've ever had to give up. I think I've had like two coffees this whole year. So like I still now and then will have it a couple times a year, a few times a year.
wow, okay,
I would say like that's just like I just love coffee. My body doesn't love it though. I'm so much
yeah,
happier off of coffee. It's
yeah.
like so much more anxiety on coffee and like just like
Mm,
this fake energy doing all these things I wouldn't do. So do you feel better now as somebody who was a previous coffee drinker? Do you feel better off the coffee? Do you have any tips for like somebody to kick that habit? Because I know a lot of people have that habit and they want to kick it.
Sure. Yeah, I do. I think it's probably the most popular drug, and it's funny. And I mentioned this the last time we met, where, getting into the recovery world, a lot of that is like nicotine and caffeine addiction is like perfectly fine. And a matter of
Mhm.
fact, it's almost kind of like encouraged or like ingrained in that. And again, nothing wrong with that. It sure beats heroin. But I mean, ideally you want to move away from, I wanted to move away from addiction in general. So the other thing I want
Yeah.
to preface my response is by saying that for so many years, I had a huge caffeine addiction. So coffee, it was like over a pot of coffee a day. I wouldn't just drink 2, 3, 4 cups in the morning. I
Wow.
would continue to drink. Yeah, it was a lot. I would drink it all day, and I would drink it like right before I went to bed, and I could
That's
still
like
feel
my
it through.
husband. He drinks like 6 coffees a day or something
Yeah.
sometimes. And then like if he won't have one the next day, he'll get a headache. And I'll
Yep.
be like, it's from the coffee, right? And he's like, oh, no, 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 it's not from
No,
that.
no, no.
It
No.
is like, okay, anyway, sorry to
Right.
interrupt.
No, it's funny. We got a lot in common, it sounds like. I too, had huge withdrawals, like caffeine headaches, literally for weeks. My doctor was like, because I did not think it could be from the caffeine that long. I thought I'm detoxed completely after a few days. And he's like, well, maybe physically, but he's big into the neurology. And he said, look,
Yeah.
what you were doing, your brain chemistry, because you drank that much for that long, there's parts of your brain that are going to take a lot longer to like fix themselves. They will, and they are, but it's not surprising because I had like a headache, like a steady headache for like literally weeks on end. So the
Wow.
tips, like what
Yeah,
helped
I
me,
guess that's how it is if you quit and you drank it for a long term. Yeah, I guess
it's a
depending
lot.
how long you drank it and how much, those are going to be the the withdrawals, huh? Man,
Yeah.
that's hard to get through. That's the toughest part to get through, like the withdrawals to
Yeah.
coffee, cooked food, like alcohol, all these
Yep.
things. But I feel like if you can get through those things and get to the other side, then you can be like, wow, man, I feel better than I've ever felt my whole life. And it's such a better life on the other side of those addictions.
And I think most people, don't you agree that most people don't even know how good they could feel because of most of those other habits that we have?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's how it was for me. Like I too, I loved coffee, and it's just like the cigarette smoke. If I smell coffee, like I still just think like, oh, but so I would miss it. But like you mentioned, the anxiety, I didn't really think I had anxiety until I stopped drinking coffee, and then I realized, oh, just that restless, irritable, and like
Yeah.
uneasy feeling, that was a manifestation of anxiety through caffeine overindulgence. And yeah, so I do feel, I think, way, way, way better not doing caffeine. The lemon ginger blast really does actually get me going. It's extremely hydrating. Coffee's a diuretic. It actually dehydrates me.
Yeah.
And so, you're drinking it all day long, and it's like I'm constantly putting fluid in, but it's actually a diuretic. So it's a really terrible, it was for me anyway, a really terrible addiction. So yeah,
It's
let me
really
give one
aging
tip.
too. It dries out our skin so much too, right? So it's more aging. And do you feel like you're as productive with work and everything, like off coffee and on this raw foods, juicing and salads and fruit? Like, do you feel like you're as productive with work?
You know, yeah, because I'm so much more present and mindful and aware and conscious and able to focus. Whereas before I would be like bing, 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 bing. And I've always been extremely productive, but I think now my level of focus and emotional stability too. So I'm able to respond in a much more, a much better way. So yeah, I think it's improved my productivity in that regard. Although I have shifted away from like what a lot of people would consider to be like traditional work to really focus on health
Hmm.
and cooking, or not cooking, but preparing food. And so, and again, I do think, and I mentioned this on the last time we met too, the real work is self work, you know what I mean? And so that's been where I've really focused a lot of my energy, is on healing myself. Like I have a very pretty time consuming like routine that I do every single morning. But then throughout the day, I'll do things like take a bubble bath, take a walk in nature, like just sporadically. My day is kind of, and again, they're not necessarily scheduled, but that's where a lot of people might, do something like watch TV or something, I'm like sneaking in a walk out in nature or taking a bath or listening to a guided meditation or something just to help keep myself in that higher state of consciousness. But yeah, it has been very beneficial to that overall. I think it's definitely improved that.
That's good. And would you say there's an overall difference or benefit to your mental health on raw food versus cooked food? Or do you not notice much of a difference?
Yeah, mental health again for me has been a big one because I have suffered with manic psychosis in the past, been locked up and put away 3 different times now. And that's kind of another one of the big motivating things for me on this journey was I knew kind of, I think deep down that food had a role in that, and probably a much bigger role than I really wanted to admit at the time, because I knew I kind of knew the right way to eat because of the old juice fast and some of the things I had heard in about raw food. They just resonated within me as true deeply. And you can't unknow that stuff. Like once you hear it and it resonates within you deeply, you can't just like you can try, and I did. You can try to like, eat whatever you want and shut it out, but it keeps manifesting itself. So yeah, once you've been locked up for a manic psychotic episode and lost complete touch with reality in that regard, that's scary, really scary. And so to think that every single thought we think matters like a lot vibrationally, there's a frequency and vibration to all things that exist that in this energy realm that we're in, and food is no different. So thoughts, they lead us to the way that we feel, and we're emotional. So all the actions that we take are rooted in emotion. All the results we have are rooted in the actions we take. But again, food and what we consume, physically, drink and food is also vibrational and frequency. And so everything has, just like Dr. Morris said the other day, everything has that vibration. And so I get to pick, and cooked food, nothing wrong with them, but I think they vibrate at a lower frequency than raw foods. Fruits, I think, are some of the highest vibrate. That's why I really loved, and this is the second person that's been like, here, free fruit, come get as much as you want. And so it's like, yeah, it's really cool when that happens. But one quick tip before I forget about the coffee, what really helped me with the caffeine and the coffee was I watched YouTube videos about how detrimental caffeine is. And there's a couple, I wish I had like the name of it. I binge watched several, but this is a trick for pretty much anything. But if you get the idea, like, okay, I really should cut back on my caffeine, or I really want to, like, just watch that. To me, education, information, and knowledge is the foundation for change in my life. It has been like, as soon as I become aware of like how many trillions of animals are needlessly bred into existence and then slaughtered,
it's crazy.
It's hard not to have that affect you. You know what I mean? And the same thing can be said of anything. I didn't know caffeine was so bad for you. There's so many other voices screaming so loudly that it's perfectly fine. Matter of fact, it's not just perfectly fine, it's healthier.
Yeah.
It improves your cognitive ability and blah, 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 blah. And again, it's hard to weed through all that and get to the truth, but there's videos on YouTube about anything. And
but it's like, if it's healthy, why does it give us such bad withdrawals then? You don't get that when you're eating oranges, and like, there's just a lot of downsides to it. Yeah. And maybe there are some benefits, right? But I mean, it's obviously got some downfalls.
Well, and I think certain people can get away. Like my dad, I think he has 1 cup of coffee in the morning or something like that. And, I think for some people that can do that, like some people I think could probably have like raw food, high raw till 4, like 90% raw or whatever, have like the occasional baked potato or lentils or rice or whatever. I know myself really well. I know I've tried to do the 1 cup of coffee. It always starts out great. It's just like, yeah, I'll just have 1 cup of coffee in the morning, but that always leads to 2, which leads to 3, which I always end up back to the same place, a pot plus a day, 12 plus cups of coffee. And it sounds crazy, but I've tried it over and over and over and over again. And so it's actually easier for me to abstain completely. You know what I mean? And I know you speak a lot about the not being super dogmatic. And while I love that about you and your approach and your views, I think that for some of us that are a little bit more like addict minded, where it's all or none, it's almost easier and better for me to be pretty dogmatic, at least right now, about the raw thing, and just really not, I don't even want to try. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've thought about it like in my head, like, well, maybe I could just have like a couple bites of baked potato. But again, for me, I really think it would lead me to, more and more and more.
And
But
do you think you're in this for the long haul, or do you think you will like maybe not do it raw long term?
it's hard for me to think about like long term. Like when I say I want to give it a try for a few years honestly seemed a little daunting. But now, if you count my juice fast, which I do, because
Hmm.
technically that's raw, and you count today, like I'm on day 190. So 100 days
Wow.
of juicing and 90 days of raw food eating,
True.
that's over 6 months. So if I can do 6 months, I know I can do a year. And if I can do a year, I know I can do two. If I can do two, I know I can do three. It's kind of like that whole, again, going back to the recovery mindset and that whole one day at a time. I don't know. I'd like to think I could do it long term, because I really think like, well, what's the alternative? It's just like when people go from like
Yeah.
vegan and they're like, oh, I I, I stopped being vegan. I had to go back and eat dead animal flesh and whatever, and I'll listen to their arguments or their justification, their the rational lies that they tell
Hmm.
themselves, and it never ever to me makes any sense at all. Now, I'm not saying they just, oh, I felt like I wasn't getting enough protein. Well, I don't know that. I just know that's not true for me. I know what has protein, what doesn't. It's easy to measure it and add it up and go, okay, I know I'm getting plenty, I think that's something I tell myself. I like that rationalize breaks down to rational lies, because I've done that where I know better, but I tell myself, this story to justify behavior that I know is not in alignment with my highest good, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think it can take time to feel good. Like, I like how you're like, I'm going to give it a few years, see what happens. Like, cause look at Shane. I think it took him 2 years, right? Like
Yeah.
we talked about at the beginning. I think it took him 2 years to feel good. And he had detox. Have you had any detox symptoms, or it's just been pretty much overall like positive symptoms?
It's been pretty much mostly positive symptoms. I mean, the only thing I could consider, I could maybe count as detox would be sometimes the digestion. It's harder to digest raw food. And if you consume a lot of it, which I do, it can get, you can get gassy and a little bloaty. And I wouldn't necessarily think that's detox, but that's comes along with the work of rebuilding the gut microbiome, which of course, I think it's fair to say after 100 days of nothing but juice, it
Hmm.
needs some rebuilding. And so I'm not the most patient person inherently that I know. And so I want results. I want 5-year results on, day two, but that's not the way it works. So, but I am willing to go through the hard, difficult things of, to get to where I see other people. I'm so grateful that we have so many people like you and Shane, and definitely people way down the road, 30 years, 35, 40 years, that have been doing primarily almost exclusively raw
Hmm.
for decades, that have like laid these paths out. They've got the books, the resources, the online content. It's so easy now. I can't imagine how much more difficult it would have been back when a lot of them got started, to not
No
have the
kidding.
support, the
Yeah.
community. Like, we're all social creatures, but some of us are way more social. And like, I need to know that there's other people. Like every day I tune into something to remind
Hmm.
myself that there's a whole community of people that's doing the same thing I'm doing, that's thriving. They're not just like, oh, I'm making it through. No, they're thriving on a raw food diet. And I'm a
Hmm.
big believer of, if they can do it, then why can't I? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like, I know I can. It's not a matter of if I can or can't. Just, am I willing to do the uncomfortable things that most people aren't willing to do? And I am. I'm
And a
willing to
lot of
do it.
them that I interview in like their 70s, 80s, and 90s, they're just like so active. Like Karen, I just interviewed again, Karen Calabrese. She's 75
Nice.
and she's getting ready to open a new restaurant in December. And her husband's 79. They're getting ready to launch that. It's like amazing. And
Wow.
like Mimi Kirk is always busy in her 80s with interviews, new books. Fred Bishy, he's in his 90s. He's still
Love
doing
Fred.
consults all the time, helping people, doing so much. So I think that's incredible. And I think the raw foods do definitely play a part in that.
Oh, for sure.
And I think they really do help lead a lot of people to their purpose and their passion and who they truly are. And it's done that for me.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so amazing. Do you have anything to end off with? Maybe some words of inspiration for anybody who might want to embark on the path you've taken, or like take a healthier path, but they feel stuck? And yeah, let everybody know where they can find you if you want people to follow you on the socials. That would be great.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm recently doing a little bit of a Facebook fasting type thing. So normally that's a great way to get in touch with me, Dan Udy, DANUDY on Facebook. But yeah, just my phone number if you want to text me. I had several people reach out after our last interview, and that was such joy to be able to, talk with people, connect with people, to hear that, our conversation helped inspire them. One woman, decided she was going to finally give up nicotine for good. And
Wow.
so I agreed to kind of be like an accountability partner for her. And that's been really fun. So it's cool. So yeah, 912-674-0889. You can text me anytime or call. If you call, it gets forwarded to my wife who runs our businesses, but that'd be a great way to connect. I'd love to connect with anybody who feels inclined to reach out for any reason. Closing words. I knew you were going to ask me this, and I was trying to think of something that I didn't, but I'll
Oh,
say
it's
that,
okay.
there's a lot of things you could do to, add things into your life, like raw food, to improve your life. And, content is a big one. Like what I focus my attention on really makes a big, big difference overall. That's why I love YouTube is great, because you can pick certain channels that you resonate with, that are positive, that feed you in helping you get to where you want to go, trusting that the way you feel is kind of your guidance system in that way. But just as important, I think, is the ability to identify, like we've talked about today, certain things that aren't serving your highest good as well. And it's not as fun to talk about those, because it's more fun to just focus on the positive, focus on the raw food content and associated material. But there's sometimes those other habits or addictions or behaviors are holding us back and keeping us from moving on. And so there's nothing wrong with taking an inventory of your life and saying, where am I losing touch? Am I watching content that doesn't serve? And there's so much funny, but again, it doesn't feed my soul. It doesn't feed my highest good. And it's easy to fall into an addictive type of behavior process with a lot of those and overindulge. So I would just say, take an inventory of what you're eating, what you're thinking, and realize that your thoughts are just a result of what you're really allowing your mind to consume, the content what you're reading, what you're listening to, what you're watching. And toxic relationships too. Identify people that aren't serving your highest good, and don't be afraid to, don't necessarily have to cut yourself completely out of certain people's lives, but just identifying maybe that somebody that you used to spend 5 hours with, if you cut it back to 2 or 3 or 4, it's a whole lot better for your mental health than otherwise. So I don't know. It's been really
Hmm.
fun
Well
talking.
said.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I
Appreciate it.
noticed just even how you like having more self-love, like eating the raw foods and taking care of yourself, how it's like had an effect on so many other areas of your life, right? You say you're doing
Oh
yoga,
yeah.
you're going to take a social media break, you're helping people kick their habits. Like it's just so many more positive things that get triggered from that one step of like learning to feed our bodies better.
Yeah, I think it definitely, it's hard to experience a shift in any area of your life that's really, really good and not have it bleed over into every other area. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so true. Well, this has been amazing. I always love having you on, Dan. I think you're
Thank you.
incredible. And for anybody wondering, I will link Dan's first video he did with us. It was amazing about his long-term juice fast. How many days did you go again? Was it
100
120?
days. 100
100
days.
days, that's
Yep.
right. And you came on day 100. Wow. And this is day 90. So congrats. You've just
Thank you.
taken so many steps towards better health. I think it's incredible. You look amazing. You are amazing. I really admire you. And to the viewers, I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, give it a big thumbs up right now. And make sure to subscribe if you don't already. I have so many amazing videos coming up, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.